Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We've had a couple of regrets. Councillor Boudreau and Deputy Warden Albright sent their regrets. As always the invitation to stand and move around if you need to. There's an agenda. Anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda stands approved as presented. Conflict of interest declaration, and you can always declare if you have something you feel that you need to declare, you can declare it now, or you can declare it when the item comes up for discussion. We have the minutes of the October 12th, 2023 regular council meeting. Are there any errors or omissions? If none, the minutes stand approved as presented. Department head report, we had the financial presentation, but it's open for questions. I have Councillor Surratt.
In a case like this, do we approve it?
We accept it.
I'm not sure.
I don't think you approve it because it's already gone.
It's not required by Robert's rules. We like to see it because it's an indication to us that council has received it and has accepted it. It doesn't have to approve it, however.
No, it's not approval because it's done. I mean, you can't change what's there.
It's kind of like an ongoing.
Exactly. Exactly. So does anybody have any questions on the attachment of the financial report? If not, can we have a motion to accept the financial report as presented? Okay. It's moved by Councillor Surratt, seconded by Councillor Bohr. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Capital investment plan. This came from Kyle, and apparently there's going to be some work that's going to need to be done at the Tusket sewer. Expansion of the or upgrade the sewer system. And the reason it's here, he would like to put this on the capital plan. And he would like us to, I guess he would like a motion from us or to say that we approve the addition of this to the capital plan. Am I correct in saying that? I believe that's what his intentions were, why he sent it to us here. Are there any questions on that? Oh, I have our CL.
Well, we can wait for questions, or I can just go in very quickly. The reason why this is showing on your agenda is we really don't have a great process to add capital projects to our list, right? There's always capital things that need to be added. And our system needs significant improvement. So for now, what we want to do is we want to be respectful of the fact that capital projects, new capital projects, are the decision of council. They're not the decision of staff at all. Staff is very adept at telling you when things are broken that you've already bought, right? So that there's two types of capital projects. One is reinvestment in something that needs to be reinvested in. For example, a new pump station for a water sewer or whatever. And others are new. Now, while this is on an existing asset, which is our Tusket sewer, the request is for the sand filtration system. So that is like your in the language of Pubnico is your treatment facility, essentially is your treatment. So there are two types of treatment in the wastewaters, and in Tusket it's sand filtration. There are two current sand filtration systems, and they are approaching end of life. They have to be fixed or reinitiated. But there's also a lot of growth in Tusket right now. And so we're trying to take advantage of a couple things. One is that the province will pay for consulting or even construction if it relates to an increase in housing. They will pay for stuff like this. So in doing an analysis of this, we know we can use provincial money to do the analysis. The problem with the project is that it's rather large, and we don't currently have the funds to support that project. So this isn't to do the project. This is to put the project on the list so that we actively go after the money. And if we are successful, it becomes a reality. That is an important distinction, right? So if it's not for us to say, we want a new this. So we're trying to be respectful of the fact that this is a council decision. That's why you see that here. I do support his recommendation and would want that to be a motion, primarily because it's on an asset. It's enhancing an asset we already are responsible for. If this was a new tourism building, we'd have a different conversation, because that has nothing to do with something that exists today. So I hope I gave a little bit of information as to why we're doing this in the way that we're doing it. And we're going to get better at this, but we're getting into asset management processes that will take some time. We're not there yet.
Councillor Surratt.
This is to the CAOs. Thank you for the explanation. So something like this, if we're approving to put it on the capital investment, are we saying that that we're paying, or is it going to come back to us for who's going to pay? Is it like the public sewer for pays for whatever's done there?
Right.
I realize I'm on the committee. We're never ahead much in the Tuscan sewer. Nobody's fault. Is the way it's set up. How does this, like, is there, if we're approving, does that mean that maybe we'll be paying $250,000 from the taxpayers and $100,000 from the people who live in Tuscan? How
Right.
is that?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say that wastewater attracts a lot of third-party funding. This is one of your high probabilities of success, that you will get, at least 60 or 70% funded by third party. The question here today isn't that you will do it. The question here today isn't that even that you'll pay for it. The question is, can we put it on the list? And when putting it on the list, what it does is we then prioritize everything on the list based on a variety of factors. So is it expensive? Is it cheap? Is it broken? Does it need to be fixed? All these questions, right? Does it attract third-party funding? Is it gas tax eligible? There's all sorts of questions that we run through. And then what happens is we give it a rating. And so you might have a rating of 70, you might have a rating of 50. Obviously 70 is better than 50. So then we prioritize as best we can the projects in that way. But at the end of the day, a project is always accelerated if it gets the money. And this has a very high probability of being funded by a BCF, Building Canada Fund, or whatever. It's also gas tax eligible. So I just want to tell you that this would be like let us add this to the list of consideration. But there is no fiscal commitment to you other than we're going to look at how expensive it would be. And all of that will come tax, to no cost to you. So that information will be free to you, right? So that's what we're presenting to you here.
Okay. Councillor Dotremont.
I guess when it was originally designed, I'm just trying to think, I guess I was here, but I take it was designed for expansion at that time, or?
It was, sir.
Yeah, and how many more units, or how much more use do we have from when we originally started?
Again, those are good questions. So right now we have the 2 functioning sand filtrations. I think we have room for another 2. Okay. We may have room for another 4 of the situation. Yeah. Last I spoke with Kyle, I hope I'm saying this correctly. What we do with these things is you would add one if you need more space, and our capacity is there already. We need the space. Even if we reconstitute the other 2, we still need the 3rd. So what I think happens is that you would put one in, and then in that time you could reconstitute one of them. So then you'll end up, creating one, fixing one, you'll end up with 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Useful life is between 20 and 30 years, depends on maintenance, depends on all sorts of things, but they do have to be refurbished after a certain period.
And how many years is the Tuscan sewer?
2005.
Wow, already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So 20 years is in 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he or I do not expect that this is going to happen immediately. It may not even happen in 5 years, but we're just asking to start considering it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Saunier.
Thank you, Warden. I know I'm going to be getting questions on this one, so I'll be anticipating the questions, and I will say this: can you not do that for any anticipated capital project, looking into further funding as you're doing to this wastewater right now?
We do.
And like, for instance, I'll be asked, why are they doing that for sidewalks in Plymouth? That's the bottom line. Right?
Why aren't we?
Actively looking for funding, or how should I put it, the cost of sidewalks in Plymouth, and getting all that set, ready to go?
I'm going to try to answer that question as best I can. Right now, we have an asset management report that's led by Kyle that would tell us that we probably have to spend between $300,000 and $500,000 a year on our existing sidewalks now. So the issue we have with this is we have a conflict. We have the need for new sidewalks in certain communities, but we also have unmaintained sidewalks in 3 communities currently. So what we have to do is drive a balance between creating new and refurbishing old. I think that I can say this with some truth, that some of our assets are suffering from strategic neglect. And this is not necessarily untrue of any municipality. All the sidewalks that we have now, even if we maintain them perfectly, still have to become accessible by the year 2030. We have in our budget, and we hope to start to do that work this year, perhaps even starting next, to get a study on the 4 locations that the active transportation plan have identified as potentially expanding sidewalks. That is not the decision to expand a sidewalk. It is money that we have to spend, our own money that we have to spend in order to get the data to know precisely what can be built, how expensive it might be, et cetera. So those things are required in order to apply for funding in the case of active transportation. The 4 locations in active transportation, one is Plymouth, one is Tuscott, one is Wedgeport, and one is West Pimlico. Wedgeport, West Pimlico are expansions. Tuscott involves the school in terms of like making that more accessible to pedestrian traffic, and Plymouth the same. Plymouth would be the same. Actually, I missed one, Drumlin. Drumlin Heights isn't a sidewalk per se, but it is a trail that will bring you from the school to the trail system that we have there. So there's no sidewalk per se, but there is a route that is required. My prediction is that this is going to take years to become a reality. And in terms of, I can't even say what we would recommend in terms of priority, because we don't know yet what the cost of each of those options would be. Some of that is a political decision, clearly, but you don't have the data yet to make it. So it's not at the exclusion of sidewalks, because sidewalks is already on our plan. This would be in addition to, in anticipation of 5 to 10 years in the future that we may need this. I will also say this, though. We as staff are very much influenced by the probability of us being funded in the project. And right now, the highest priority in Canada is housing and accessibility. So if the project is housing, it is a high score, typically, in terms of funding. That means that could be wastewater that attaches to new housing. It could be all, there's reason, not building a house necessarily, because that's not our role, but setting the stage for growth attracts a lot of money. And number 2, attracts a lot less money, but does attract money all the same, which is accessibility. And that's where your active transportation would come into play. But we need the study first. So right now we know we can get money to fund the Tuscott study. We cannot get money to fund the sidewalk studies. That'll be our own money. But I will repeat that work is going to happen in the next 6 to 8 months once we get the contractors, the consultants, to do that work.
So I apologize for getting off topic, but because it was a capital project, I saw the comparison and I had to ask.
Of course.
So going to the wastewater, my question is there a hidden cost in terms of having to hire more staff for maintenance if you're enlarging the sewer?
In this particular instance, we doubt sincerely that it would increase a staff cost because the increase in capacity would not necessitate that. In some cases, so the Tusket sewer is maintained internally for the most part, but can also be maintained by a third party. Most of which is pumping, septic pumping, and cleaning of filters. Staff does the filters, and the pumping is external. It will require more staff time, but that's a question of allocating that time appropriately. We also have wastewater and wetchboard, as you know, which is growing, and that's growing the requirement for staff to maintain that. However, we are in early talks about understanding, like after a certain period of time, that's not a septic system; those are septic tanks, and there is discussion right now, which will have to come to you for approval, to eventually transfer ownership of those to the resident. So if that's the case, then there would be zero requirement of a wastewater operator to do that. It would then become the responsibility of the owner to pump it the way that they ought to pump it. We're not there yet, right? We can't actually do that legally until year 7. Great question. My answer is it will put a little bit more pressure on staff, but I don't think it would require an additional staff cost.
Thank you.
Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we put the expansion of the Tusket Sewer Treatment Plant on the capital, I don't know if it's capital priority list or just capital list.
Yep. Capital investment.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Surratt. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Item 7 for decision and discussion. Article P8, holiday attachments. We had the 7-day notice. We had an opportunity to discuss some of that. So there's an attachment. So are there any questions? Yes.
So this is second reading, so I'll make a motion that we accept the Article P8 holiday policy.
I'll second it.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? There. My mic is on again. It kept turning off. Councillor Sonia.
Just a question. You got a list of all the paid holidays, and at the very end on the same list, you've got office closure between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Are staff paid through that whole week?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's something that's been happening
Okay.
ever since I've been on council. Yeah. They close the office between those 2 holidays. Okay, so we have a motion and a seconder. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Carried. We have Article P12, leave for blood donations, attachment as well. And again, that was 7-day notice at our last meeting. Are there any questions? Or I have to, there, I can finally see. I have Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I'd only want to make a motion that we accept the policy for the leave for blood donation for the employees.
Is there a seconder? Seconded
I'll
by
second.
Councillor Surratt. Yours. Okay, there's a motion. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Carried. Joint Policy Advisory Committee Community Representative. And what it is it was advertised. We need a community member, and no response, but we've had one person that has come forward that would be on there. Councillor Board.
I'd like to make the motion that we move that Jeanne Muse serve on the Joint Policy Advisory Commission on behalf of Argyle.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, carried. Short-term accommodation bylaw, and that's for a levy. Now, I'm not sure that we need a motion on this, or do we make a motion here that we can't approve it because there's really nothing there to approve, but we can approve that we're in favor of YASTA to go for this. Is that correct?
Yes, council has options here. So council can say no, and that's the end of it. Council can say that they support the initiative in principle, and then instruct myself to begin the process of drafting.
Okay.
So you're not approving a bylaw because you
No.
don't have anything to approve, but you're approving the work to be done, essentially.
Okay. Councillor Surratt.
There's money involved here, a charge of so much, so I think a motion would be in order. Because there's gonna be money involved, there's a percentage, 3% charge on the thing, so I would prefer a motion, but maybe I'm wrong, from what I've seen. Thank you. That's to the CAO.
What Councillor Surratt is saying is correct. There is a financial ramification to this. It's generally a flow through. So, but that is specific to the bylaw. So you wouldn't today have to pass a motion for that, but to pass a motion to authorize the work, there is no cost to that. But then when you get the bylaw, be ready because that will have a levy. So anybody who has a tourism operation in the municipality of Argyle will now have to charge an extra $2 or $3 or whatever the case may be to a person coming in. Will the tourism operator pay that? No, but they will be responsible for collecting it and remitting it. It will increase the YASTA coffers because that's what it's for. It's a tourism levy. Yes. It's a marketing levy. So so I don't think you have to make you can make a motion to start the process today, but you don't have to make a motion to commit anything fiscally at this time.
Any more questions? Councillor D'Entremont.
So I'll make the motion that we, begin the process? Is that what you were saying, CEO? So I'll make the motion that we begin the process of and work on this bylaw or whatever you want to call it, so.
It's a short-term accommodation bylaw, is what it is. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Saulnier. Any discussion? CL.
I should remind council that before you make before you vote on this, this motion in no way means that you're committed to the bylaw.
No.
So this is, I just want to make sure that we understand that you may not like the bylaw. You might approve the concept and see the bylaw and hate it, and you can deny it at that time. That's why I just want to remind council of that.
Okay. If there's no more question, can you turn your mic? It keeps disappearing here. There, now I see it. Go ahead.
So the difference between this is a bylaw.
See, it still didn't come on.
Okay, I'll talk loud. There it is. So the difference between a bylaw and a policy, when you bring the bylaw, it can be voted on. It doesn't have to go through the 7-day notice of public hearing. So tourism operators may be able to say something.
Oh, this thing is not working today. It's
Oh,
terrible.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Excellent question, Councillor Donaldson. So for a policy, you have to do 7-day notice and then you pass it at the next meeting. For a bylaw, it's a little more complicated. You do have to go through the public, it's pretty much like a public information process. It has to be advertised in the paper twice and then you can pass it after that. But it does require, it allows the opportunity for the public to give input on a bylaw, not necessarily a policy as much.
Good. I just wanted to make sure that the operators could at least have a chance to question it.
Right.
Okay, good.
Councillor Surratt.
I was just looking, and I know we're not into the bylaw or nothing yet, but I'm looking here, there's a 3% fee per night levy in the municipality of Inverness. You know, so if somebody's in for a week, let's say it's 1,000, or let's say it's $2,000 for a week, that person's paying $60 more. It might not sound much to some people, but it is, it's a fair amount. So I'll be interested to see what they bring up as a bylaw. Thank you.
Councillor Donchamon.
Just to answer your question, Councillor Surratt, the levies will be across the province. So, I mean, it's not going to be a disadvantage to us in this area because people will be charging it across the province. So people will, huh? Oh yeah, so people will be paying. And for example, in the state of Maine, for example, they already have a levy that's actually 5 or 6%. There's levies all over. This is not something new. I mean, the town we had the levy, which was the units that, or the operations that had over 20 rooms, right? And they were charging a flat rate of $2 per room, right? So, but this will be, across the province. New Brunswick, probably most of the places that you go, if you really look at your bill, you've got a room levy on there. So it's not going to be a disadvantage because people will be paying it wherever they go, right? So they're not going to look and say, geez, Argyle charging 3%. I'm not going to go there, right? So, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. If there's no more discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. Correspondence, and for information, we have correspondence to NSFM from Shelburne, cell phone coverage. There's an attachment. I guess this is not just in Shelburne. This is a lot of areas, cell service is poor in a lot of areas. It's terrible. NSFM policing. Deputy CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just driving in here driving home tonight from work. I heard that the provincial government is investing, I think it was $46 million in cell phone coverage. Yeah,
That's great.
today. So yeah, it's fresh out the
So
press.
they're finally realizing they have to do something. The Municipal Reform Act, there's 3 or 4 different items there. We've kind of discussed it. It's for the service exchange. Sustainable Communities Challenge Fund for YIAC letter of support. We sent a letter of support. That's for the airport. So is there any questions on any of those? Seeing none. Financial request, we have a district community grant request, West Side Improvement Society, $500. Councillor Digdon,
I'd like to make a motion that we give $500 to the West Side Improvement Society from the community improvement funds.
seconded by Councillor Donchamon. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. Agenda topics for next meeting, notice of motion by councillors. Seeing none, question period. Any questions come through? Nothing came through. We have no in camera. That brings us to the end of our agenda. So the